Right. Yes, sir. Well, my name is Coke Hopping with Sankey Rodeo Schools, and I'm a saddle bronc instructor. Along with, I also help in the bareback riding. But I'm 53 years old, and I've been with Sankey probably longer than just about anybody on the staff. My first school was in 1980, I believe. So, and several years after that, I was asked to be on staff, and I've been on staff helping him with schools in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and the southern United States since then.
Perfect. So explain to me a little bit, Coke, like, you know, you tell me some good stories. Like, what type of things do you do at the school? Explain to me your role. And maybe kind of explain to me, like, maybe give me a good story of a time that, you know, maybe something was a little bit crazy, a little dangerous.
Well, sir, we get students from all over the United States. I've had students from Canada, from Brazil, mainly in the horse riding is what I'm in charge of as far as the bareback riding and the saddle bronc riding. We've had a lot of, oddly to say, I've had some women from Canada come down. I had a sheriff's deputy from Minnesota come down. We've had schools where we've had students as young as 14, and I guess the biggest success story is one of the current individuals in the saddle bronc riding, as far as the standings, is Jacobs Crawley. He was 14, attended Sankey Rodeo School, and right now he's in the top 15 in the saddle bronc riding in the PRCA. So as far as success stories. And so we've done schools. Clovis Crane came down from Pennsylvania. He was preparing for World's Toughest Cowboy competition, and he came down and practiced. And we worked with him, and he was successful in World's Toughest. And I guess the biggest thing that people don't understand is one thing about horses, whether they buck or they run off. There's always forward motion, and there's always that impact catching coming off the horse and hitting the ground. It's a little bit different in the bull riding, but in the horse riding, there's always something happening as far as the horse is concerned. So, been a few close calls, but I've been working with Lyle the last, I want to say 15 years or so with the New Caney School, and that's where we've had most of the saddle bronc riding. Had a lot of students come there. I've had as many as 18 students in one school. So, but that's, we do schools all over.
And tell me a little bit, like, what the students do, you know, while in school. Like, explain to me, you mentioned a little bit, like, explain to me the types of students, and, you know, if they're young, they have pretty, like, you know, do you have any issues with parents and things like that?
Well, I guess the youngest student has been about 14 years old, and that's what we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing a lot of students that are a little bit younger that are coming to the schools. I've had students I had an airborne ranger at our last school. He was in his late 40s, and he came and tried, and that was, when you talk about stories, that was one of the things that he said he's jumped out of jets and airplanes for the last 20 years as far as an airborne ranger. But when he hit the ground, getting bucked off one of those horses, he said that's the hardest he ever hit the ground. So it sort of jarred his middle a little bit, and he had to readjust his thinking whether or not he wanted to be a saddle bronc rider. Well, one of the things about my instruction with horses, I've grown up around horses all my life. In 1979-80, I was a masked Red Raider for Texas Tech. You know, and as far as representing Texas Tech University, and I've been around. I raised bucking horses. I've trained horses, and one of the things I've worked on a lot of big ranches, the Pitchfork Ranch up around Dickens, Texas. I worked there for a couple of years, and so I've been around horses all my life. And I think what what I bring to instruction in a saddle bronc riding is a little bit of horse sense. I teach students there's a little bit more about horses, their nature, how they handle themselves, how they buck, and that's something we do at Sankey Schools, that we bring students into the arena, and whether they have one piece of equipment or they have every bit of their equipment, we start from the ground up and we apply instruction and training in all aspects, from equipment to horse sense, and from that perspective, what I gather from a lot of the instruction that I've done over the years is that's what I bring to the table, is good old-fashioned cowboy sense of how a horse operates, how he thinks, and how that athlete that wants to learn to ride saddle bronc horses with that added knowledge of horse sense, how he can be successful in the arena.
Tell me a little bit about like maybe common mistakes that people make when they're riding a horse that could be potentially dangerous.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is, especially with young kids, and this is something the last 8 or 9 years that I've had to do with the novice individuals, is due to the forward motion of the bucking horse and the way the horse operates. That horse is given 110%. So what we've also had to go in is we've had to teach these students how to hit the ground to protect themselves, sort of like an Evel Knievel type philosophy. Hit the ground and tuck your arms and legs in and hit the ground rolling, tuck your chin. And that's where we see most of the injuries, is from a rodeo perspective, with people that have not been on a lot. Most of the injuries come, they end up, it's like they're jumping off the top of the bleachers and they're just landing flat on their back, or they're landing flat on their, and that's where most of the injuries occur. So one of the things we tell them is, how to hit the ground. And the horses, it's called bronc riding for a reason. And a lot of these horses are bred to buck, and whether they're into bucking shoots, they'll paw and bite. And these are not the type of horses that you're going to take out and make a yard ornament around your house with. I mean, even if the horse doesn't buck, very seldom do these horses, they just don't have the disposition to be halter broke and then turned into saddle horses. Not very often anyway. But so that's one thing that we've noticed the last 10 or 15 years, especially with novices.
Now, talk to me a little bit about maybe some of the students. Is there any type of student that you just don't like to teach? Any certain type of personality?
I've had students that were, they look at it and they watch it on TV, and then they come to the schools, and all of a sudden they say, this just didn't look like that on TV. And if they're a little bit overweight, and that's been the biggest deal, is people are out of shape, and what they don't realize is the shape that these professional cowboys that are doing this for a living, the bar's been changed over the last several years. The kids, it looks easy on TV, or it looks easy at the NFR, but those guys are professionals. They train every day, and that's one of the things. So the biggest obstacle that I have is kids that come into school and somebody else has gotten into their head that this is the way you do it, and they're unsafe. Their shoot procedure, they crawl down on one of these bucking horses, and they just don't know what to do, and all of a sudden they're in a position to get hurt. So with our shoot procedure, we want those students to be, the biggest thing is they need to be coachable. And those two things, students that are physically unfit or that are uncoachable. And even if they're unfit and they are coachable, we can do something with that. But if if they just can't take coaching, that right there becomes those students, oftentimes by the end of the school, they're either hurt, they buck off all the time, or they leave with a bad attitude. And I think several students that are coachable, that's where Sankey Schools has a lot of success the last 30 years. And if you look at the professional ranks, you see a lot of students that are coming out of these schools and are successful because they're in shape and they're coachable.
So talk to me really first about a little bit about Lyle and his personality, you know? Talk to me a little bit about Lyle. Give me the good and bad, you know?
You want me to take that one?
Yeah.
I can take that one.
Well, you know, there's several people on the staff that would say they could take that one. My son is one. It's standing. He's saying, "Here, let me answer that question. Let me answer that question." But from a historical perspective, there's always something different about an individual that's a world champion, whether it's Michael Jordan, Emmitt Smith, or Lyle Sankey. And those people that are successful being world champions, they put their pants on one leg at a time, whether you're talking about Ty Murray or Lyle Sankey or whoever, but their approach to the game is different. And that's one thing that Lyle brings to the table is a professional attitude on the good side. He's not opposed to parking his car on the side of the road and running 2 miles to stay in shape and all those types of things. The way he approaches the game. On the flip side of it, professionals in their sport, whether you're talking about NASCAR or football or rodeo, sometimes they can be very anal. And they're anal to the point that if it's not perfect, it's not right. And so that's what around students that are novice, I've been an ag teacher for 20 years, and so my profession has also been in teaching youth. And so I'm a little bit more patient, a little bit more forgiving than Lyle, and that's what happens a lot of times is the student messes up, the first person that gets in trouble is me, because I didn't provide the instruction adequately enough, and Lyle will come up and he'll go, "Coach, this kid's doing this all wrong. What did you tell him?" And so all of a sudden we're biting our tongues, and you know, everybody's but the underlying goal is still the same, and that is to develop a perfection in that student. What we want that student to do is leave that school, be good in his shoot procedures, so that when he goes home, he can go crawl in the buck and shoot. And the main thing is he's safe, he knows what he's doing, and he has good equipment and good knowledge. And with those two things, he can be successful in the arena. And Lyle is, and that is adamant in what Lyle teaches. And sometimes it just, when you're in the middle of the fire and you're helping a young kid that's 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, that sometimes gets a little hard to do, especially with today's youth. Today's youth is a lot different. They want it right now. And 20 years ago, students were willing to work hard for it. And I think that's what we're seeing in the rodeo industry. We're seeing if they can't have it right now, they're not willing to put out 110% the next 6 months to put themselves in shape. So, and Lyle has a very low tolerance for that type of stuff. But he's on top of the game. Sir? No, he doesn't. But you know, with any and with the parents, sometimes that's where the parent comes in, and we end up teaching on the parents. You know, there's a lot of instruction goes on at the schools. Just step away from the buck and shoot. All of a sudden, you step out with the kids, and it's a gut check. It's a reality check, and all of a sudden, that's where the personality of Lyle is different with his schools than a lot of people is there's nothing that says we don't take a parent or a child off to the side and say, you know, it's okay if they don't want to do this, but at the same time, teaching these kids about life. A lot of our schools, the things that goes on in that arena are the same issues in life. And if they overcome those issues in the arena, who's to say that they could overcome the issues outside the arena? There's schools. I did a school in Kansas with a kid that had a real bad issue with depression. Did a school with a man in Missouri, and he was an alcoholic. And after we went through the school, the things that happened in the arena altered how he approached life. And when he walked away from the arena, he felt a lot better about himself in the direction he's going. So they all go hand in hand, and that's one of the best things about Lyle that he brings to the table that a lot of other schools don't. There's more to the game than just sitting in that buck and shoot, and so that's what I appreciate about Lyle.
Perfect, Coach. I think you did a really good job. You can turn off the camera.